Thank you, Mignon and Josh and Dr. Federley. As we light our chalice this morning, I would like to share with you these words. We light this chalice flame in honor of our belief, individually and collectively, that light will prevail. It will prevail over darkness in all its forms, and it will conquer the darkness. Good morning. To speak of peace, as I am doing this morning, amid societal chaos, seems out of touch or at least jarring. So much has happened. So much continues to happen daily, hourly, which stirs our fears. But this focus on peace amid the chaos is deliberate. Someone recently said, let us build inner peace or fall to outer chaos. Perhaps so. I do wish to refrain from joining the many voices of heated rhetoric. I do believe change is coming, significant, powerful, good change is coming, and will arrive soon. In the meantime, to use an ancient phrase, perhaps we need to find that peace which transcends all understanding. Perhaps peace can give us some solid ground on which to stand amid the anxiety storms which swirl around us. And the Serenity Prayer seeks to do this. The significance of the Serenity Prayer lies not in who wrote it or who might have wrote it or who adapted it or revised it. The relevance and the importance of it lies in how it helps people in the present and going forward, and how it has helped millions throughout the world in years gone by. Why does this prayer play such a significant role in the lives of people? I think it is because it points to a dilemma, a context, a situation which we daily confront. Namely, what do we let go of? What do we find to pursue? What can give us the path towards the greater good for self and others? Where will we direct our finite energy? How will we do this wisely, and by doing so, contribute to our well-being and that of others? Rather than an intellectual exercise, this prayer invites us into another way of thinking, so uncommon, and invites us to enter into the intimate and intricate ways we think and act each day, and how we might shift the course of our lives in positive directions. Thank you, Joy. That was a beautiful story, and I deeply appreciate you sharing that with us this morning. Josh, I was moved by your reference to your mom and her interest in and perhaps love of the Serenity Prayer, and I'm again and again surprised by the numbers of people who here and there that I meet through life were touched in various ways by that prayer. And I would like to dedicate this second sermon to the memory of your mom, Josh. Last week, I spoke about a family member who could not let go of many things that affected him powerfully and deeply, to the point that he was, in a word, symptomatic, and he showed very clearly how he was burdened by many things he could not let go of. And this affected the course of his life, his relationships, and the arc of his life and perhaps how it ended. The extent of his holding on was very powerful and noticeable, but what was operative in him, I tried to convey, was really at work in all of us to a lesser degree. Today, I will tell the story about someone who struggled over years to let go of something which controlled them, in a manner of speaking, until he found a way forward, which involved letting go, finding courage, and moving to something that could be healing. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. is a striking, long black wall with more than 50,000 names engraved upon it. I have visited there many times while in Washington, D.C. It receives an endless flow of visitors who leave notes and pictures and flowers and teddy bears and all kinds of memorabilia, tokens of the past, on or around the wall. One of the notes left there was a picture that had a picture attached to it, was placed by a man named Richard Luttrell. The photograph that was attached to the note was of a Vietnamese soldier, and in the background, a picture of his young daughter. He had taken this photograph off of the body of the man he killed. Richard left the following note, which he attempted to append to the wall with the picture. "Dear sir," he wrote, "for 22 years, I've carried your picture in my wallet. I was only 18 years old that day we faced one another on that trail in Chu Lai, Vietnam. Forgive me for taking your life. So many times over the years, I've stared at your picture and your daughter, and each time my heart and guts would burn with the pain of guilt. Forgive me, sir." Luttrell felt relief when he placed this note on the wall. He had completed a circle, done all he knew he could do to address something that he had been holding on for a long time, and to make a gesture of healing, even if it was to the universe and no one in particular. A man named Drury Felton was the curator of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial collection. He collected each year all of the memorabilia that was placed on the wall. And one day he came by the note Luttrell had left in the picture. It stayed with him. It moved him. He had not ever remembered a note addressed to an enemy soldier. He could not let it go. Years later, Mr. Felton was asked to produce a book called Offerings at the Wall. Among a warehouse of objects and images that he had access to, he put the picture of the little girl and Luttrell's letter in the center of the picture of displays. Luttrell, who was at the time working for the Department of Veterans Affairs in Illinois, received a copy of that book due to the fact of his position. And on page 53 of that book, Luttrell saw the picture that he had left at the wall and the note that he had written. To Luttrell, it was like a sign, as though this little girl was staring at him across the span of time and space, refusing to let him go. Luttrell and Felton got in touch with one another. Felton flew from Washington, D.C. to Illinois, where Luttrell lived, and returned the picture to him. Stirred by this unusual series of events, Luttrell told his wife that he was going to Vietnam and try to find this little girl. It seemed insane because he did not know Vietnamese. He did not know anyone in Vietnam. He did not know any way in which he could bring about what he intended to do. His wife inwardly doubted him, but knowing the burden he had carried over the years was outwardly encouraging. Luttrell followed a thread. There was this one newspaper man he knew in St. Louis who had written an article about Luttrell's experience. Luttrell mailed a copy of this article to the Vietnamese ambassador in Washington, D.C., and a copy of the slain photograph and his daughter made its way to Hanoi, where an editor published this photograph along with the appeal, "Does anyone know these people?" A man in Hanoi sent his mother a care package of some food items and other things and wrapped it in the newspaper on which the picture was posted. It made its way to a rural village north of Hanoi where a very elderly woman unwrapped it and then took it to a neighboring hamlet, extended the picture to her, and told the woman, "Here is your father." Weeks passed, and Luttrell received a letter from thousands of miles away. The first name of the girl in the photograph was Lan. By now, she had children herself. Reading the letter, Luttrell was struck by this surreal series of events. Stirred by hope and driven by curiosity, he wrote a letter to Lan and her family, trying to explain how he felt. But now he was sure he would go back. He was filled with forebodings. How would this woman react to him, a man who had killed his father? But with courage, he decided to follow the thread, to take the step with courage toward the unknown. Luttrell could not annul or change the fact that he had killed this soldier. And by the way, one haunting aspect of this story is that in Luttrell's perception, the soldier who had pointed a rifle at him had seen him in the eyes and hesitated shooting him. And that is when Luttrell shot him. Years ago, when he left Vietnam, he swore he would never go back to this place of suffering. But here he was on a plane to Vietnam. The day he was to meet Lan was a cloudy Wednesday morning in Hanoi. He traveled by van for 2.5 hours from Hanoi to Lan's village. The whole village had turned out to see him. Driving into the village, passing around the stone wall, Luttrell saw a woman who he was certain was Lan. Composing himself, walking out of the van, walking toward her until they were face to face, he recited a sentence in Vietnamese he had memorized. "Today," he said, "I return the photo of you and your father, which I kept for 33 years. Please forgive me." They both cried, and Lan embraced Luttrell very tightly. Lan's brother stepped up beside her and told Luttrell that both he and Lan believed that their father's spirit was living on in Luttrell. He said to him, I know, Mr. Luttrell, you may believe that this is superstition, but today both me and my sister believe that our father's spirit has returned in you being here. Luttrell told them that their father had died a brave man and a courageous warrior. Luttrell felt a healing beyond words. The poet Rumi wrote, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. In the course of our lives, we do things we regret, that we're sorry for. And at other times, impelled for reasons we don't understand, people do things to us which hurt us, perhaps by which we feel betrayed. Somehow we must find a way out of the loops of doom, mutual recrimination, regrets, guilts, and fears which plague us and the human condition. How do we do this? The Serenity Prayer suggests it is by letting go of what we cannot control, discerning what we can change or control, committing our energy there and pursuing our well-being and that of others. And what is required to walk that path is courage, because like Luttrell, we always go into the unknown. This action sometimes involves seeking the least objectionable goal or thing that we can change or control, and committing our energy to what is most important, all the while knowing that it is simply the least objectionable among perhaps undesirable objectives. Life's circumstances can be difficult and tragic. Sometimes the difficulties derive from our own past mistakes, sometimes from events that are imposed upon us that we have no control over. And sometimes, often, a combination of all the above. Was it Luttrell's fault that at age 18 he was swept up to a war, had a gun put in his hand, and told to kill the enemy? Should he have known better? Or was he engaged in a righteous cause, as some thought? Was he a pawn in the hands of politicians? Was he wrong in not hesitating in shooting the man who he perceived had hesitated in shooting him? Who can answer these questions? No one. Whatever the answers, whatever the problems, Luttrell felt the sting of guilt and was haunted by a picture and reminded of a life he extinguished. And he resolved to do something about it. Life is often this way. One day we wake up having arrived suddenly or by slow degrees before a conundrum in which we wonder, what should I do? What can I do? What do I need to let go of? How can I feel empowered to move forward? But what do we move toward? As the word serenity, describing the prayer, Serenity Prayer suggests, we are ultimately moving toward greater peace, greater well-being, greater harmony within ourselves and with others and beyond. Both Lan, the daughter of the man Luttrell killed, and Luttrell himself had to do an immense amount of letting go before they could have been able to see one another. Had this not been the case, they could not have faced one another with so much clarity of heart and mind. And their meeting was successful because they had done a lot of letting go. Something allowed Luttrell and Lan to walk through the fears, the anger, the regret they faced, to forgive themselves, to ask forgiveness of others, to face the unknown, to face the unknowable. While knowing the roots of any dilemma has its value, our focus must always be on what can I do and what can I let go of. The Serenity Prayer calls us to focus on ourselves, no one else, as the locus and nexus of change we want to see in the world. That, I think, is part of the genius of the prayer. We must always start with ourselves and resolve within ourselves how we want to relate to the world now and walking into the future. Discernment regarding what to let go of and what to pursue can be complex and difficult. And to guide us, we might ask the following questions. What burdens me now? What do I need to let go of? What is important for me to change? What is possible for me to change? What would increase my peace and the peace of others right now? I look forward to exploring this subject further with you next week. As we extinguish our chalice flame this morning, be mindful that our lives are about to change in a wonderfully positive way. In about 90 hours, our lives will be very different, and the trajectory of our common life as a society and as individuals will be very different and very positive. Hang in there. Don't lose hope or faith. A new day is dawning. The benediction I share with you is the following. May we all experience the serenity of those who accept what cannot be changed, have courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, savoring each moment, accepting difficulties as teachers pointing a path to a greater peace, taking this imperfect world as it is, not as we would have it be, trusting that wholeness and peace can emerge in our lives and in the lives of others. Amen.